Everybody, we're going to be going over how to paint an Evil Sunz Trukk. And so this is the introduction here. We're going to talk about the basics of what I plan on doing. So the first thing, of course, you want to assemble and prime your truck, but you don't want to assemble it completely. I want to do it in definitely sub-assemblies. And so we got the gunner is assembled, the driver has an assembly, and we got the gunner pod here. I'll have that separate just so I can get in here a little easier. And I've also got the wheels separate, not glued on yet, so we can get to the undercarriage a little easier. And lastly, I've got the heads glued onto a piece of sprue for easy painting on here. Turns out that getting the head on the gunner really isn't all that easy, so I would probably recommend gluing the head on, which I've done on my trucks I built after this one. So, and then he's got so much armor, you really don't even see the face on it, so you don't have to really worry about painting it. It's going to be completely hidden. So that's going to be the sub-assemblies here that we're going to be painting on the truck, and then glue it all together when we're done. Now, most of the time I'd probably do some rusting effects on the truck, but because this is going to be Evil Sunz, so the armor is going to be red, the rust effects really aren't going to show up very well. Doing red and brown and orange rust effects and then covering it over with a bright red, it just doesn't show very well, so I'm not going to be doing very much rust on here. I might do some little bit here in the bed and a little bit more here in the undercarriage where there's not going to be any red paint, but where the actual armor is, there's not going to be any rust effects. I'm going to do some chip paint, but I'm not going to do any rust. So the first step is to give the entire model a base coat, and the color I'm going to use for the base coat is Vallejo Model Air Black Metal, which is one of my favorite colors ever produced by any company, any line. And don't forget to do the gunner pod and the inside of the wheels while you're doing the rest of the paint job. So I'm just going to base coat it. There's no reason to do that on camera, so I'm just going to get that done, and then we'll go on. So I've now completed the base coat on the entire truck, and I went through, this is the black metallic. I went through and very carefully got into all the crevices here underneath the suspension, underneath the drive shaft, the entire drive shaft. So this could be definitely done with an airbrush. I did it with a regular brush just because it was late at night, didn't want to fire up the compressor. And but even at that, the airbrush really doesn't do a very good job of getting down into all these crevices. They can be shadowed. I mean, you have like shadows of paint here, so I had to do all that with a brush. So yeah, so it's got the base coat, it's all cured up, so we're going to move on to the next step. And what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick out some of the bits in other colors and metallics. So I've got lead belcher, Balthasar gold, gold 10 bits, I'm sure there's a equivalent of that now, and Vallejo Model Air aluminum, which I'm just going to brush on. So I'm going to do this very similar to the way I did my last truck. So I'm going to grab these lines, these bars here, they're going to be done with the aluminum, and then just random panels on here and be done in the other colors. No particular rhyme or reason. I do know I'm going to do the exhaust in lead belcher, I'm going to do the roll bars here in lead belcher. So that's not going to get painted. I'm going to take the wheels back off. Put those on there, they're not going to get touched either. Exhaust, I'm done in lead belcher. And maybe some of the radiator will be done in Balthasar gold. But basically I'm just going to go through here and just pick out some of the detail in the model. And again, I'm not going to bore you with the painting on camera. This is going to take some while and I need to get up close to make sure all these details get painted right. So I'm going to call it here and then I'll come back when I get this next step done. Okay, so here we are. This is the next step. I finished up all the basing of the metal pieces. Everything I wanted to pick out is picked out. So I got the hood scoop because it's going to be painted red, radiators aluminum, and the bottom of the cab floor. And that's about it. Didn't do much else. So the next step is to do some rust effects on it, and I'm going to be using my 3 classic colors I use on all my rust. First is Model Air Rust. This is Dark Flesh, which is a very reddish brown. One of my favorite colors, so, yeah, but can't get it anymore, unfortunately. And Troll Slayer Orange, just for a little bit of orange color. You could also use a Rise of Rust, but it's basically the same thing. So I'm going to start with the rust color. There's a couple different things I'm going to do with this. Throw it on my palette. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of stippling here. So we've got a crappy old brush. So I can kind of almost do it like a dry brush here, except we're going to stipple. I'm going to smooth most of the bottom here in just a light rust color. Not too much. So that what you can do with the brush is very similar to the way it's going to be when you're dry brushing. Remember to get in between and underneath the axles here. So this is a very light color, I mean, compared to the metal, dark metal. So it's not going to show up very well, which is fine because you want a pretty subtle effect here. Now if I was going to go with a heavy rust, I would go much heavier on this color. Almost covering, but I'm going to take the tires off. So we could do that. Come on. The inside of the wheels. Exhaust pipe. Getting rusty because that is going to be really rusty. Sides of the frame rails, slightly. Leaf springs. Bottom of the engine. How's up here? That's about it. That's good. Not too much. And then we do the same thing basically in the bed. Except we're going to be avoiding the the tin bits and the Balthasar gold bits. I'm just going to go over that. And the back of the wall here. And the roll bars. And that's about it. That's all we're going to do for that. And I'm going to take my fine detail brush and add a little bit more flow aid to the mix of rust to make it a little more runny. Just a drop. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to kind of do a pin wash with it over parts of over these rivets here on the aluminum. Yeah, that's just the way I want to do it. No particular reason. Just for a little pin wash of the rust. Okay. So that finishes up that color. Now I'm going to go on to the dark flesh. I'm going to do basically the same thing. Just give a good stipple. Oh, there's not much of this left. That's a shame. And we can go in over again. So kind of in the same areas. Overlapping the existing rust color. And again with the bottom. And I'm going to be concentrating it. Basically where the only existing color is. rust too, sorry. Okay, the exhaust pipe. Especially heavy on the exhaust pipe. That's where most of the rust is going to be on a real car, than the exhaust. And you get some on the engine too. I mean, it's no big deal. It's not like you're going to be able to see the engine anyway. Well, you know, on a normal one, but on this particular one, you're going to be able to see the engine. So you will want to add some effects to the engine. Because you are going to be able to see it on a normal truck model. Just not on this particular one. So I'm going to add some rust to the top of the engine here. That can get covered over. Okay, that's about it for that. Now the Troll Slayer Orange, which I'm basically going to be using as a dry brush. So I'm going to make sure my brush gets good and dry here. This again is also a very light colored. Oh, I forgot this part. That's no big deal. Because rust is in so many different ways. There's no one particular way to do rust, because there's no one particular way that rust comes about. Because the colors and the patterns are all based on the actual weather the rust goes through, or the material goes through. So I have to redo that scoop with the lead belcher, which is fine. Quite a bit here on the exhaust pipes again. And exhaust pipes, side of the engine. And then again, another light dry brush, just pretty much over the entire bottom. Or actually, in this case, probably a pretty heavy dry brush. Again, not rusting any of the armor sides or anything, because we don't want to do rust effects where the paint's going to be, because red paint and rust effects really don't work well together. And again, you can do this as much or as little as you personally prefer on your own models. I don't want to rust this one up too much, because it's going to be Evil Sunz. They probably take a little bit of, well, I'm going to say they take a little better care of their trucks than most orcs would. At least my Evil Sunz do. Get the fuel tank. Down in between here, just get some color. It doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to be perfect. So, pretty much a little bit more on the front. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the rest effects. We're going to do one more effect here, actually. Okay, so there's a couple more things I want to do on here. So this is Hawk Turquoise. You can also use the new technical color. I don't know what it's called, but there's a verdigris technical color. But this Hawk Turquoise works really well for a verdigris color. And mix it up with some flow aid. Quite a bit, actually, because it's going to be pretty runny. What I'm going to do is just add some more kinds of corrosion to some of these things. So basically we're just going to do a pin wash then over the rivets here. And use brassy plates with the Hawk Turquoise. And you can do it down, I'm going to do it on the floor here in the cab, and they're absolutely never going to see it. So I'm kind of doing it like a, well, at least it looks cool for now. Something like that. There you go. And then we also add some to the radiator here. So on the a little bit here on the stuff too. Just to give it a little more variety. Something like that. You never kind of run off it's a little bit if you want to. Okay, and then for the radiator, I'm going to grab some scorpion green. That's not going to be the right color. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So we're just going to mix in a little bit of the hawk turquoise with the scorpion green. Oh, that's perfect. So we're just going to mix in a little bit of the hawk turquoise with the scorpion green. It's just about perfect color right there. And we need to have some, it's a little too green maybe, I don't know. We have some leaky coolant here on the top of the radiator. And around the hose here. I guess it's going to end up being painted black anyway. But so I might have to redo this, I don't know. And maybe some streaks down the side of the radiator. Again, you're probably never going to see it, but it looks cool to me. There you have a leaky radiator. Yeah, nice and weathered and rusty. Exactly. Nice little subtle effect. So I'm going to have to go over and do this part too, a little bit. Okay, so I did forget to mention the wheels. You do want to do some rust effects on the wheels too, just like you did with the rest of it. Because these will be painted. They might be painted, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. The problem with the wheels, of course, you have to get down in here really well. You can't always do that, so it would be really hard to get down inside these wheels. Don't want to forget the back. And these are completely optional. You can just paint this part, paint the wheels to match the ink. So the problem is going to be this one here. We're going to try and get down into that if you want, because that's where most of the rust is going to be, is down in there. That's where I'm going to grab my brush. I need some more paint. And take my detail brush here and just put some rust down here. Into the gap of the wheel. It's much more realistic that way. So I'm going to finish rusting up the wheels, and then we'll do the next step. And the next step is just after everything dries up here, is just give the entire model and wheels a wash of Agrice Earthshade. And you notice we're going to do that before we put the final color on, and I'll explain why we're going to do that later. So next time you see this, it'll be washed, and I'll let the wash dry as well. Thanks for watching.